All right, welcome to our latest video. It is on Unit 4, which is Module 6. You should see that module right there in front of you. It is on metric unit conversions, and we are looking to do one homework and one quiz. No discussion questions this week. Next week, we have unit conversions, not just metric, but unit conversions. One quiz, one homework. Then you'll remind yourself that Module 8 is our catch-up week, and Module 9 is our exam number 2. This is all here in the Canvas student view. So something to think about there. I am going to show you the syllabus on paper in 1 second. So here is the paper copy of the syllabus to look at, and then we'll jump right into the questions that we're going to be doing today. So on the paper copy of the syllabus, we have tonight's work on the metric system, the 10th. We have next week's work on the 17th. Very important that you make it to the 17th, because the 17th is our class before our next test, but there's a whole week off in between, and you're going to miss quite a bit if you don't make it to the October 17th class. So very important that you take care of business on that. Okay, this worksheet has gone out to everybody. It's on the computer on announcements. If you need to find it, it's out there. And it is the worksheet we're going to be spending a good amount of time on today. We're going to be taking some notes on that. And so I found that there was a good space on the back of this worksheet to take some notes. So the notes we're going to take on the back are going to start us off with some ideas about what you know or don't know about the metric system. So if you take a minute and are following along with this, we have a system of measurements that we call the customary measurements. And we're going to split our paper into two sides. The customary measurements are measurements that we might be used to in certain different things. For our length of things, we have a customary measurement of a mile. The abbreviation of a mile is MI. For other customary measurements of things we might want to measure, we have a yard abbreviation and an inch abbreviation. And these are the customary measurements for length that you might have heard about in your own personal time. The customary measurements for mass being weight of things, would be things like an ounce, abbreviation OZ, and a pound, abbreviation LB. There's a third mass abbreviation or word we use, which is a ton, and I believe it's a capital T. A ton is a large amount of weight, very different than a pound or an ounce. So in that case, we went backwards. Okay. And then if we start talking about liquid measurement, okay, there's some very small liquid measurements like a teaspoon and a tablespoon. Those might be used obviously for measuring some sort of recipe, but they also might be used for measuring some sort of medicine to someone. We could have a fluid ounce. So teaspoon is TSP, tablespoon is TBSP, fluid ounce is FLOZ. Now, there are some other ones in liquid. You might end up with something called a quart, abbreviation QT. You might end up with something called a gallon, abbreviation GAL. These things are things that we would typically talk about with a liquid measurement in our time in the customary system. Okay. Now, another situation we might end up with is called the temperature. So the temperature has two different types of temperatures. There's Fahrenheit, and Celsius. And you might have recognized those two words from travels, if you travel anywhere where there might be a difference of people using the metric system or the regular customary. And in Fahrenheit and Celsius, There are several different, very specific numbers that go along with this. F for Fahrenheit, C for Celsius. This is the freezing, and this is the boiling point of water. And so the numbers that go along with this that you may have recognized from prior knowledge is that when it's 32 degrees or below, our water outside is freezing, snow, ice, whatever. And when it is 0 degrees Celsius, that's when everything is freezing. The Celsius people were pretty smart. They did from 0 to 100 their scale, so that we went from freezing to boiling, because those are the extremes of water, freezing to boiling. But the Fahrenheit situation, dealing with mercury, had something different. And they have 212 as our boiling and 32 as our freezing. You will also note that there are some formulas that go along with this, and they look like this. If you wanted to find the Celsius temperature given the Fahrenheit temperature, you would use that formula. We'll practice that later. Don't worry about it if you don't get it right away. And if you want to do the Fahrenheit temperature, given the Celsius and want to find Fahrenheit, you do something rather different. In the first one, you multiply by 5/9 after subtracting. In the second one, you multiply by 9/5 and then add. And we're always adding that number 32 because it has something to do with the difference between the two. Now, the customary measurements are listed as we just did. There are metric measurements that could also be listed. And the metric measurements start with kilometer, a kilometer or kilometer. A kilometer is very similar to a mile. On your speedometer of your car, you have both kilometers and miles, I assume. Okay? So, the next one down that's close to a yard is called a meter. Sometimes they talk about races, the something meter dash or the something yard dash. And the last one is a centimeter, otherwise known as cm. So we have some abbreviations over here, km, m, and cm. Note, one of them has no thing in the front and the other two have one thing in the front. Now for masses or weight, we have a gram. A gram's abbreviation is G. And for a pound, we have a kilogram. Notice that the kilo is the bigger of the two. A pound is quite bigger than an ounce. As we go down, there is nothing for tons, measured metric tons, so don't worry about that. As we go down through the list of liquids from smallest to biggest, okay, small liquids can be measured in milliliter, otherwise known as ml. That would be both for tablespoon and teaspoon. A fluid ounce could be considered a little bit bigger, which we'll call a centiliter. Not used very often, but it could come up. A quart would be very similar to just a plain old liter. My L's I write as cursive L's, so I can tell there's a difference between ones and L's. I believe that my math lab uses a capital L, so they would just be using capitals. Okay, and for a gallon, our biggest again is a kiloliter, which would be a small k and a capital L. Okay, so why is this important? It's important because a lot of the work they're going to be doing over the next for this unit has to do with recognizing different metric versus customary information. Okay, so what I'm trying to get you to do is get some sort of a connection. If you think about a mile in your own mind, that is about the same as a kilometer. They may not be exactly one-to-one. If you think about how long a yard is, a distance on a yardstick, a meter and a yardstick are very close. Okay, if you think about a pound, you might also start thinking about a kilogram. And if you think about liquid, like tablespoons and teaspoons, might be like giving someone a milliliter of dosage. A quart might be like a liter. I'm sure you've seen a 2-liter bottle of soda in your life. Okay, so these are the kind of things we want you to get used to. All right, worksheet 8-1 has a lot to do with the beginning of what we're going to do for our pick a good measurement for this. And as you read worksheet 8.1, which is out there on the internet, you will see that you're supposed to write down on the first set something that has to do with customary. And I'm just going to write them down, and you can look at them later, and you can ask questions if you need it. But if I was going to weigh a whale, I would use a ton as a measurement to weigh a whale. If I was going to measure the length of a freeway, I would talk about it in miles. Notice I'm not doing any metric in this. If I was looking at a punch bowl or something where I was serving some punch or some sort of liquid at a party out of a big container, it would probably be like a gallon or a couple gallon container. And then a window would probably be in feet, although it could be in inches, depending on how big the window is. And because it's area, we want to do square feet or square inches. Now, as you go down into 5, 6, 7, and 8, everything here is only on metric. So a computer monitor would be in centimeters. The amount of gasoline in a car would be kiloliters, which is very soon like a gallon. A weight of a feather doesn't weigh much at all, so it's smaller than an ounce. It's like a milligram. And the volume of your closet would probably be in meters. Centimeters are like inches. Those are small. I don't think you'd measure your closet in inches. And kilometers are large, like miles. So meters. But since it's volume, we're going to put a little 3 next to it because it's called the cubic meters because it's a 3-dimensional answer. Okay. As you scan the rest of this worksheet, we are going to be filling in some blanks for some of these, but not all of these. And some of them are metric to metric and some of them are not. So we are going to have to talk about the difference between the two. And we'll talk about the practice of how to do that when we need to. So I'm going to jump back to our other paper where we took our notes on the back. And we are going to talk about how we actually go about converting from metric to metric. So I'm going to write down an acronym here. And the letters are in order, K, H, D, B, D, C, M. And K stands for kilometer or kiloliter or kilogram. K is our kilo, our abbreviation, our prefix. Okay. C is our centi, which stands for centimeter, centiliter, or centigram. M on this end, smallest of all, stands for milli, which gives me millimeter, milliliter, milligram. The smallest is milli. Centi is a little bigger than the smallest. Kilo is the biggest. That's kind of how it goes. This D is called deci, and that would be decimeter, deciliter, or decigram. Notice they all have a letter in the front. H stands for hecto, because we have a hectometer, a hectoliter, or a hectogram. If kilo is the biggest, hecto is one less than the biggest, or one size less than the biggest. I've already used D for deci. I have another D, so I have to denote that different, and that's called deca. And if you're following along, deci, centi, milli, all end in I, kilo, hecto, all end in O, and deca ends in A. So that would be the only one where there's 3. Decameter, decaliter, decagram. Now, before you jump in and put a B in front of everything, we have ignored several of the ones that we talked about on the other side. We don't have any space for just plain M, or just plain L, or just plain G. And that's where the B comes in. That's called the base. That's the middle number, the middle thing, base, meter, liter, gram. Okay, you have to memorize these in the same order. You have to memorize them as this list. And it's not on anywhere that you will have in front of you on a quiz or a test, so you have to memorize it. I have heard King Hector died by drinking chocolate milk. King Hector died by drinking chocolate milk. That is one way to remember those letters in the right order. They need to be memorized in that order. So it would be a good idea to get a way of memorizing. If you come up with a better one than that you'd like to share, you feel free. Okay? Question number 1 on this page is asking us to change from 4,000 590 centigrams to grams. So if I write out my list of letters in order, like I have memorized, I know that centigrams is right here. And I want to move towards grams, grams being right here. So centigrams to grams. I need to move 2 decimal places. 2. So my decimal place, which started here in number 1, which is after the 0, needs to move 2 decimal places. And the final answer for question number 1 is 45.90. Feel free to rewind this as necessary so you can see what is happening. 1.0275 is my next one. And if I write it out in order with the letters in the right places, so I have memorized my list, I am starting at DL, and I am moving to DAL, which means, again, I'm moving 2 spaces to the left. But this time, I've run out of room. So my answer turns out to be 0.010275. I've moved my decimal point so far to the left, I had nothing there. So I have to add a 0 to get something there. Number 3. The next answer is 0.0034 is a start. And it's actually going the other direction. And let's just take a look why you would think it'd be going the other direction. It's starting at HM, because that's what it says right here. And it's going to MM, which is way over here. So I have to figure out how many times it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to take my decimal place here and move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've run out of room, so I'm going to have to add a 0. The answer to that is 340. I don't need the first 2 numbers. I'm going to pause the video and write in the answers for 4, 5, and 6. And then when I turn it back on, you'll see that, and you can try it on your own. Okay, so the answers are here now for 4, 5, and 6. You can pause the video yourself as needed to get those answers on the paper. So now that you've done that and practiced those, we can take a quick peek at the homework eventually, but we could also go back to your 8-1 worksheet right here and search through this worksheet to find any metric-to-metric conversions. And the first one we find is number 11. And in number 11, if we set up our list of letters in the correct order, above it, we're going from meters to centimeters. We're going from meters to centimeters. Sorry, meters is here to centimeters. So we're going 2 spaces. So I take my 684 and I put my number decimal point where it should be, and I move 2 spaces this way, which means my answer is 68,400. For this one, I'm going from milliliters to liters back to base. So I need to go 3 spaces. And my decimal point was at the end after the 4. So I'm going to go 3 spaces. So my answer is 0.384. Okay. Showing you a quick list of the homework questions is always a good plan. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to open up the homework for Unit 4, and we will see what some of the questions are. All right, so question number 1, as we go through the list of questions. This shouldn't take long. Supply the abbreviation for milliliter. Question 2. Yes. Question 2. Supply the word, and there's a drop-down menu for you to get the answer. Supply the abbreviation. Supply the word. So those are the first 4 questions. The next question on the list is a question that has something to do with converting. So you have your liters to milliliters. So you're going to use King Hector died by drinking chocolate milk, move the number over the certain number of decimal places, and there's that. There's question 5. Here's question 6, another conversion. Here's question 7. Here's question 8. Here's question 9, 10. All we're doing here over and over again is converting through the list. We go all the way up to question 13, and then 14 is a word problem, but it does say centimeters to milliliters. Then we get to 15, which you should be able to figure out. Okay, again, it's liters and milliliters. The first question, which is a little different, is question number 16. And the only other question that's a little different as well is question number 17. They're on a piece of paper, and I'll go over those. But here we go on 18. The most reasonable metric unit for a glass containing liquid, would you use liters, milliliters, kilograms, grams, or milligrams? Talking about liquid, looking at your list, the only two on liquid are liters and milliliters. And 350 liters seems like quite a bit. That's like 175 2-liter bottles. So I'm thinking the answer is probably milliliters. That's question 18. Then we got 19, another reasonable. Question number 20 are another reasonable. And that's it. There are 20 questions on your homework. So that is where you are in terms of what kind of things you have to do for homework. So that should be pretty straightforward. Now, here are the piece of paper. Here is the piece of paper that we looked at. What I just mentioned were 2 new kinds of questions, 16 and 17. So I'm going to put that up as full screen. So question 16 has a lot of words to it, but the most important part of it is that it says 120 milligrams in 3 cc's of liquid. Milligrams are mass, which means there's some sort of weight to it. So it's probably some sort of a crystal form. Okay, we're putting crystals into liquid. So I'm writing 120 milligrams over 3 cc's. Putting an equal sign there. Then I'm going to put 200 milligrams on the top and an X on the bottom. And I'm going to solve that by doing 3 times 200 divided by the 120. Another way of solving this would be if we wrote 200 milligrams, which is what we wanted, over 1. We did multiplication. And since milligrams were on the top, milligrams are going to go on the bottom, and cc's are going to go on the top. There are 3 cc's, and there are 120 milligrams there. And then when you do that, it's going to be top times top divided by bottom times bottom. Either way, it comes out to 600 divided by 120, and the correct answer is 5 cc's. It would make sense that the answer needs to be more than 3 cc's, because if you had 120, you have 3 cc's, but we got more than 120, so we have 5 cc's. The next question down at the bottom can be figured out in a similar way. If I want 78 grams of stone, I can write that as 78 grams over 1. I can put a multiplication sign. If I have grams on the top, I need to put grams on the bottom of the next fraction. This is a new concept. And I need to put milliliters on the top. If grams are on the top of the first fraction, grams need to go on the bottom of the second fraction. And if I circle gram and gram, the only thing left over is milliliters, which is what I was looking for. And then by this multiplication, I need to do the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. And the answer should come out to be something in the 6,000s here. Clear. What's this? 78 times 80 is 6240. Top times top, bottom times bottom, 6240. Divided by 2263. Is 23.7. And then it says to round to the nearest whole number, which means the answer is 24. All right, so the homework section is finished. All the questions on the homework have been laid out for you. The next thing we're going to talk about is getting us ready for next week. And I think this is a great place to put this in the video. You can return to it later if you need to and watch and learn for some of the things that we're going to do. We're going to start on number 9, and we'll do a couple of these. We don't expect mastery on these right away, but you're going to get better at it next week. So number 9 starts off like all the others are going to start off. 38 minutes over 1. We always write the word with it, and we write it over 1. The one next to it, number 10, would be 72 feet over 1. So we write the abbreviation and the number, and we always put it over 1. So get used to doing that. 25 pounds over 1. 3,000 pounds over 1. 2,136 minutes over 1. Okay? Now I skipped number 13. If I was to just blindly write 4.63 over 1, I would be incorrect because this one is a metric conversion. So pay attention to when it's metric and when it's not. Okay? We'll skip 13. Now, in order to get the next part, I put a times symbol after each of my first fractions. And then I look over here and say, if minutes were on the top, minutes need to go on the bottom, and minutes have a relationship with seconds. If feet were on the top, feet need to go on the bottom, and feet have a relationship with inches. If pounds were on the top, pounds need to go on the bottom. If pounds were on the top, pounds need to be going on the bottom. If minutes were on the top, minutes need to go on the bottom. So I'm setting myself up there by getting the numbers, no numbers, but just the words in the right places and the abbreviations. There are, in fact, 60 seconds in 1 minute. There are, in fact, 12 inches in 1 foot. This piece of paper went out to everyone. It is a fact sheet. It has lots of facts on it. You never have to memorize any of the facts. You're going to use these facts as we go through. But you don't have to memorize it. They will be there for you when you see the test or the quiz. There are 16 ounces in 1 pound. This one wasn't on the list, but there are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton, and there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So the question is, if you have the setup done correctly, you should do the following. I'm going to circle minutes and minutes. The only thing that's not circled is seconds, and that's what I wanted. I have feet and feet. I'm going to circle both of those. I was looking for inches, and that's the only thing left that's not circled. I have pounds, pounds. I have pounds, pounds. And I have minutes, minutes. Everything that wasn't circled is exactly what I had been looking for. That's how you know when you stop your fractions. And we'll get into that stop or not stop next week more. The answer for every one of these questions is always going to be top times the top and bottom times the bottom. Top times the top is 2280. Bottom times the bottom is 1. And anything divided by 1 is just 1. So the answer is 2280 seconds. If you have 1s on the bottom, you don't need to do anything more than just do the top times the top. So I will not go through that with this one. Top times the top is 864 inches. And I don't need to divide. The next one is 400 ounces because 25 times 16 is 400. Now 18, something happens. That's different. The top is 3,000 and the bottom is 2,000, which means I'm not done yet. I have to finish this question. I have to divide and get an answer. Answer 1.5. And over here, this is going to be 2136 divided by 60. 2136 divided by 60. 35.6. 35.6 hours. So don't get lazy and think the second fraction is always something over 1. It certainly has the ability to be 1 over something. But you don't need to worry about those questions as much until we get to the week following and coming up. I'll do one more. 15. 64 quarts over 1 starts us off. You don't know this, or maybe you can't see your fact sheet, but quarts have a relationship with pints. and there is, in fact, a relationship there. And then pints have a relationship with cups. So in this particular example, number 15, highlighted here, I don't have just 2 fractions, I have 3. How do I know when to stop? Quart, quart, pint, pint. Everything that's not circled is cups, and that's what I wanted to have, was cups. In your list, there are 2 pints to every quart, and there are 8 cups, 2 cups in every pint. So at the bottom, I have my ones again. And at the top, I have 64 times 4, which I believe is 256. I'm right. So the answer is 256 cups. You don't have to worry about these again until next week. Don't miss next week. It's a very important week. And you have everything you need for your homework. I suggest when you are doing your homework that you look at this page, because it tells you how to do some of the questions that are there. I suggest when you're doing your homework, you look at this page so you know how to move the decimal, okay? And I suggest when you're doing next week's homework, you look back at this page, particularly at the ones that we just talked about. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Have a good rest of your afternoon or whenever you're watching this video.